This is the public hearing and the meeting of the Committee of the Whole regarding bills number 250195, 250196, 250197, 250198, 250199, 250200, 250201, 250202, 250210, 250211, 250212, and resolution number 250214. Ms. Lawhead, will you please call the roll and take attendance, please?
Councilmember Squilla. Councilmember Gautier. Councilmember Jones. Councilmember Young. Councilmember Driscoll. Councilmember Lozada. Councilmember Bass. Councilmember Phillips. Councilmember O'Neill. Councilmember Gilmore Richardson. Councilmember Thomas. Councilmember Harity. Councilmember Ahmad. Councilmember Landau. Councilmember Brooks. Councilmember O'Rourke. Council President Johnson.
Present. Thank you. A quorum of the committee is present, and this hearing is now called to order. Ms. Lawhead, will you please read the title of the resolutions?
Bill number 250195, an ordinance amending Chapter 19-1500 of the Philadelphia Code entitled Wage and Net Profits Tax by revising certain tax rates under certain terms and conditions. Bill number 250196, an ordinance adopting the operating budget for fiscal year 2026. Bill number 250197, an ordinance to adopt a fiscal 2026 capital budget. Bill number 250198, an ordinance to adopt a capital program for the 6 fiscal years 2026 through 2031 inclusive. Bill number 250199, an ordinance amending Chapter 19-2600 of the Philadelphia Code entitled Business Income and Receipts Taxes to revise tax rates and end certain exclusions from the tax on receipts, all under certain terms and conditions. Bill number 250200, an ordinance amending Chapter 12-1000 the Philadelphia Code entitled Traffic Code to revise the fee for the use of parking meters, all under certain terms and conditions. Bill number 250201, an ordinance amending Chapter 19-1800 of the Philadelphia Code entitled School Tax Authorization to provide for an increase in the tax the Board of Education of the School District of Philadelphia is authorized to impose on real estate, and amending Chapter 19-1300 entitled Real Estate Taxes to establish an equivalent reduction in the tax rate for the city real estate tax, all under certain terms and conditions. Bill number 250202, an ordinance amending Section 19-1806 of the Philadelphia Code entitled Authorization of Realty Use and Occupancy Tax to eliminate certain exemptions, all under certain terms and conditions. Bill number 250210, an ordinance amending Section 10-1001 of the Philadelphia Code entitled Fees of Commissioner of Records to increase the portion of fees for the recording of deeds and mortgages and related documents to be used for housing trust fund purposes under certain terms and conditions. Bill number 250211, an ordinance amending Chapter 19-1400 of the Philadelphia Code entitled Realty Transfer Tax by revising the rate of the tax, all under certain terms and conditions. Bill number 250212, an ordinance to amend Chapter 19-4400 of the Philadelphia Code entitled Development Impact Tax to end imposition of the tax under certain terms and conditions. Resolution number 250214, resolution providing for the approval by the Council of the City of Philadelphia of a revised 5-year financial plan for the City of Philadelphia covering fiscal years 2026 through 2030 and incorporating revisions with respect to fiscal year 2025, which is to be submitted by the Mayor to the Pennsylvania Intergovernmental Cooperation Authority pursuant to an intergovernmental cooperation agreement by and between the city and the authority.
Thank you, Ms. Lawhead. Today we continue the public hearing of the Committee of the Whole to consider the bills read by the clerk that constitute proposed operating and capital spending measures for fiscal year 2026, a capital program, and a forward-looking capital plan for fiscal year 2026 through fiscal year 2031. This morning we will hear testimony from the Register of Wills, and this afternoon we will hear testimony from the Department of Public Health and from DBHIDS, the Department of Behavioral Health and Intellectual Disabilities. Before I start, I just want to acknowledge the presence of Councilmember Curtis Jones, Councilmember Ruth Landau, Councilmember Kendra Brooks. With that being said, Ms. Lawhead, will you please call the first panel for testimony?
The first person to testify is John P. Sabatina, Register of Wills and Clerk of Orphans Court.
Good morning, Mr. Sabatino. How are you this morning?
Very good, sir.
That's
Good morning, President Johnson and members of City Council. I'm John Sabatino, Register of Wills, Clerk of Orphans Court. I'm here with my staff, and I'm pleased to provide testimony on the Register of Wills fiscal year 2026 operating budget. First off, we have some plans for fiscal year 2026 with additional funding requests made to the administration. The Register of Wills Department plans for fiscal 26 are to continue the restoration and preservation of historic archives. And to speak with that, I have Emilio Di Gregorio and Errol Ditka. Just go all down. Okay. And the other next area that we're going to cover would be to enable the outreach program to guide and explain to the public our services and new title clearance unit that we have established. Working with that program, I have Aisha Williams with the title clearance and Kyle Sampson for public engagement and outreach. Next subject I have is onboard a legacy system vendor to replace the current system. It's basically just a new software system that we hope to enable us to have better document requests. Fourth, we have make capital improvements to the office that are urgently needed and prepare a space to showcase and display our historic documents in commemoration of America 250. In addition to all of this, I would like to mention that a request has been made to the administration for additional funding for the above current appropriation level. No additional funding has been granted for the previous year, and we're asking that we now get some funding to help provide funds for our programs that we have come up with for this year. Thank you for your continued support and consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Sabatino, and I know that my office partnered with your office on several different housing fairs regarding educating individuals regarding tangled titles, and so I thank you and your team for that. I thank Jewel Williams for serving as the liaison with members of City Council regarding the operations of the Register of Wills office, as well as Ms. April Scott Street, Public Engagement Senior Advisor, who've also partnered with us as relates to communicating and teaching the public, educating the public regarding the process that deals with tangled title as it relates to building generational wealth and people not losing their homes. And also Mr. Roger Poe, who makes sure that the Register of Wills office, from a communication standpoint, keeps the public well informed of your operations. And so I want to start off by thanking those individuals, at least that my office works with, and get into our questions. Give me an update. Well, I'm going to let my majority leader talk about tangled title since that's her space.
Well, start off with the tangled so-called.
Not yet, sir. I'm glad you're eager to respond, but not yet. I'm going to let my majority leader talk about the tangled titles. But give us a more in-depth overview of the archive preservation and digitization software that you want to use to make sure we're keeping our records up to date, and also making sure we modernize the Office of Register of Wills.
Good morning, Council President. My name is Errol Ditka, Finance Director. For as far as the archives, we have restored few records. We had a one-year term contract with a vendor about 300,000, but they did an analysis on the entire archives, the one in City Hall in the 9th floor, also the one at 6th and Spring Garden, and they kind of came up to a conclusion that, you need a lot of money to restore these files in the few millions of dollars, let's put it that way. We have been asking for funding every year to restore the ones that require immediate attention, because there's files that the paper is decaying or it's bad odor, and it doesn't really make it like a good working condition, especially for the people at archives. So we want to address those. But we also want to prepare for the American 250 anniversary to commemorate the independence from the Great Britain. As far as the legacy system update, we went through the last audits. There are some recommendations from the auditors to make some upgrades, but the current system doesn't have the functionalities that we need, especially for internal controls or better record keeping or record viewing. My deputy can speak to deeper detail because he's the one in contact back and forth with OIT for the requirements. But a general overview is that we need to replace it for internal controls recommended by the auditors and also for better record keeping.
When you update and modernize and digitize these records, how will it improve public access from the public for the historical and legal records? And also, I know you have an RFP that's put out for a new system, and what's the timeline and the scope of the RFP as well?
Thank you for that question. I'm going to let my deputy answer that. Emilio Di Gregorio.
Good morning, Council President Emilio Di Gregorio, Register of Wills, and good morning, City Council members. So we are at the finish line with the RFP with respect to OIT putting the final touches to make sure all the city's technical specifications are. So I think we would release that RFP hopefully June, and then leave that open and let it go through the vendor process, vendor selection, interviews, and see all the features that some of the vendors that are in the arena have available to us with further modification to our needs. And this new system would allow us to bring the city's records to a public portal, which we don't have at the moment. It'll utilize our existing database that we work with OIT in maintaining, and then give the public full free access to view records, request records, streamline payment processes. So it would really bring Philadelphia to the forefront with that.
Okay. In terms of the recent state audit that came up with different findings regarding some internal controls regarding Register of Wills, how are you actually addressing them?
So currently, we use a in-house auditing process according to their standards, but they would like a more robust system auditing process where we can quickly get to solutions. Our reports are a little dated as far as transaction-wise, so it would modernize to today's standards as far as the financials, reporting, and auditing process.
Okay, thank you very much. To lead this round, I'm going to call on Majority Leader, Councilman Gilmore Richardson, then Dr. Anthony Phillips, Council Member.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Council President, and thank you to our Register of Wills and the entire team. I wanted to start off first with the thank yous that I received from my team, but I don't have to read them to know that I always start off with Lou Dorenzo. He is the best in the business, the absolute best, and I will never forget his work, and we really appreciate him. But also Vernice Bradley, Colleen, probate clerk, she is excellent, she's stellar, she's very knowledgeable, and my team says every department needs a Colleen. Bob Stewart and April Scott Street, she was at our Winfield event. So I just wanted to put those names on the record. All of you are here. We thank each of you, but I wanted to, oh, there you are, Bob. Okay, I wanted to put on the record the names that I received from my team, because I've asked them to pull for every department we work with each year who we've worked with, okay? Wanted to start with Tangled Titles. You all know that that's an issue that I've been working on really closely since the last term, and thank you, Council President, for the opportunity. We had given you all additional funds last year to stand up the title clearance unit, and you all have given us detailed reports regarding the families that you've been able to assist, even down to the council district and the areas. If you could talk about how you all are continuing to work with families to clear Tangled Titles for the remainder of this fiscal year. And then, you know, this is my real overarching concern, and I've spoken to the Register about this, is how your office is working directly with the legal service aid organizations, because how we set up under the funding with MPI for Tangled Titles is not just through the city department, but it's also to give funding to the legal service organizations to help us clear Tangled Titles and deeds. And I want to ensure that as we do this work, we are prioritizing making that process as easy as possible when you're able to, emailing documents instead of having them walk over to get the documents. So could you just talk about how you all are streamlining the process with working with the legal service organizations around Tangled Title clearance?
Yeah, at this time, I'd like to call up Myasia Williams, who basically handles the Tangled Titles. As we call it a little different name, but it's basically the same as used to be the Tangled Titles. We have it as, we call it a title clearance unit.
Right.
Oh, here you are.
Good morning, council members. Our title clearance unit is working with constituents from start to finish with the process of clearing their property titles. At this time, we are not working closely with the other community organizations because they're income-based organizations, whereas we are working with the working class members or citizens of Philadelphia. Anyone that comes to our office or we receive a call from someone that fits within their income range, we do refer them over to the community legal services.
Right, so, because I want to get this on the record and make sure we're all clear, because, you know, we already had meetings about this, and I'm really just putting this on the record more so than anything, is that you all, if you receive a case for title clearance, if the individual does not meet the income requirements for legal service assistance, then you all have the ability to help them traverse through the process in your department through the title clearance unit, correct?
Yes.
And then if they do meet the income requirements for the legal service organizations, then you all refer them to the legal service organizations,
Yes.
correct? Okay, and then if the individual meets the requirement to work with the legal service organization, then you all then will work with the legal service organization relative to any of the documents needed to help with the resolution of their case that may be housed in your department. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And then as much as possible, when records are able to be emailed, when possible, do you all email records to the community service organizations that the city contracts with, i.e. Community Legal Services, VIP, Bar Association, and others?
Yes.
That's correct?
Yes.
Okay, all right, thank you very much for that. I wanted to also mention, I saw that I think my colleague, Councilmember Phillips, is having an event with you all around the Real ID, and we actually had another event at a church recently regarding Real ID. I went for another purpose, asked us to come back strictly around Real ID, and we found that a number of seniors in particular are having issues with getting their Real ID because they need, I guess, the copy of their marriage license that has the raised seal. Have you all noticed that you've been getting additional requests for that? And then how should we work with you all to expedite those requests for individuals who are seeking to get their Real ID? I mean, I know we only have 2 days until the May 7th deadline, but I'm sure more folks will be, you know, as they find out about the necessity of Real ID will be coming in. How do we work with you all to ensure that we're helping folks get an expedited copy of their marriage certificate?
Thank you for that question, Council Member. We've received such an influx of requests, mail and in person. We normally process 40 records a day. Prior, we're doing roughly 75 to 80 in person, in addition to 75 to 80 pieces of mail per day. So we've dedicated additional staff for this. We're processing as many records as fast as possible as we can. Any requests for urgent matters, we pull to the front of the line, whether it's visa or passport situations, Social Security. But if any requests come through, please make it to my attention or anyone in the office, and we'll definitely address it as soon as we can. But we've committed additional staff to kind of take over the overflow of this process, which we know is frustrating for a lot of people.
I figure you all would have to do that because that's how many people we have actually heard from over the last several weeks as the deadline continues to approach. So thank you very much for availing the additional team members to ensure that we can help as many constituents as possible. And I'll come back on the second round. Thank you, Council President.
Thank you. Just had one question I wanted to ask about, wouldn't be a leader if I didn't ask. And we do got a good relationship, but there was this recommendation saying that we should get, the state says, PICA says they should get rid of the Register of Wills office. And I don't agree with that. I want to be partners in making sure that the Register of Wills office is working as most efficiently as possible. And you just came on as the leader of this particular office. And so what is your response and what are you doing differently to counter that actual recommendation that came from PICA?
We'll have our Chief Deputy answer that.
Thank you, Council President, for the question. Yeah, we believe, as with you, that this is not the action to take.
Can you speak more into the mic, please?
On to PICA.
Yeah, thank you.
So the questions they bring up about our office don't really apply to our office. There's no issues where net positive, revenue. We take care. We're self-funded essentially. We're taking care of the constituents with title clearance. We collect inheritance tax. We do all these various things that the PICA board didn't seem to want to ask us about, or they reached out to other offices that they were investigating but didn't reach out to us. And I thought that would have been a smart thing to do. As a former journalist, I usually ask the source, could you want to comment? And we would have been able to assure them of each and every point they made that really didn't apply to us. So we're always improving the office.
So for the record, you wasn't directly contacted to say, hey, here's our issues, here's our concerns.
Correct.
Here's official response.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. I'm glad you said that for the record.
Yeah, happy to say it for the record.
Okay, all right. But finish talking about the things that you are actually doing to show that your office is efficient as you counter that particular narrative.
So just a great example is one that was just brought up about the marriage certificates. In a lot of city departments, people have certain job descriptions and it's rigid in the way you can apply how to move people around. But I was able to recognize there was a problem, brought to my attention that, hey, we have a line for people who need marriage certificates for Real ID. Okay, well, I relocated several people to there. If you go in there right now, you'll see that every desk is occupied. That's not necessary in January of any given year. We're not that. We have 40 a day. We don't need full staff, but every table is full. I have people in the back room. We have our archives is staffed up because anyone prior to 2000 needs a marriage record. We have to literally go up a ladder to get that. So I have a team over there that gets it scanned in immediately so that no one's waiting. So much so that we actually have been able to do some events at some of your offices and actually get them in hand either right there or just a few days later, which is something we couldn't have done if I wasn't able to pivot so quickly. So sometimes when people are talking about the office isn't efficient, I don't understand what they mean. We're able to, if something happens and we need to move somebody to marriage licenses, everyone starts to get married. That happened last year. When the federal election went in, some people were afraid, immigration purposes, they wanted to get married. Guess what? The line out the door for marriage licenses, guess what? Bob puts in 2 more people to go help and get that room staffed up. So I think when they talk about operational efficiencies, it's really completely unfounded, and we're able to move people quicker than other departments where I talk to other people who have my position, hey, how do you guys do it? We're always exploring better ways and more efficient ways, and they're like, actually, you're able to do it faster than us, so great. So we do that, and then, so it's really about just being efficient as being nimble, and we're able to do that on a dime. I have people I can send up to Orphans Court. I could text them right now, and before I'm out this room, they're walking by me going to Orphans Court. A lot of other departments don't have that flexibility because of the way things are in the hiring practices and the rules.
Okay. All right, thank you very much. And just state your name. I know it, but just state your name.
Oh, I'm
and
sorry.
title for the
I'm
record.
Bob Stewart, Chief Deputy for Register of Wills.
All right, thank you very much. Chair recognizes Councilmember Dr. Anthony Phillips, then Councilmember Isaiah Thomas, and then Councilmember Dr. Nina Ahmad.
Thank you all so much. I just have a few questions regarding some youth work, community engagement, as well as some contracts. Let me just start with the contracts. On page 13 of my budget, I notice about 10, maybe about 15 or so consulting contracts that are here. Scoop USA, Urban One Inc., Box Sourcing, IBM Production, Buzz Communication. What are these contracts about? And what do they do to serve the office?
I'll answer it. Good morning, council members. So those contracts are from FY24. Some of them are no longer with the department, but the majority of the contracts that perform some sort of public outreach or posters, like let's say Scoop, they did the banners, the big banners that you see out down the hall with the big wheels, and they're portraying the information it belongs to. Some of the contracts were like advertising about the program.
Can you speak it to the mic a little bit?
Yes, some contracts were about advertising about the program from the previous person, and with the new program that we currently have, the title clearance. So it's mostly like public engagement and public outreach. But the deputy can answer a little bit better for the contract piece. Call Emilio.
Like, how are you measuring the effectiveness of these contracts? Urban One, Co-File Technologies. I mean, we have a technology,
I guess
service in the city.
Thank you for the question, Councilman, but the Co-File Technologies was the restoration and digitization preservation contract. So it's more of a, actual document work. It's not a tech firm, so to speak. Only the scanning aspect of the old documents, which are full-scale, large image scanning, are handled by them. Some of the other contracts you mentioned were for advertising and public engagement. So we're gauging those contracts with the response we get from constituents, the number of cases that we're getting from those engagements.
So for example, Urban One was $58,000. What engagement are we doing with that?
So I believe the Urban One was public radio awareness campaign that was done from the prior administration.
Okay, is that proposed, and that's taken out for this year, but it's okay, and then, all right, so I just want to make sure, okay, okay, that's fair. Last question I had is, has the department considered partnering with schools, libraries, or youth organizations to introduce basic estate planning awareness to younger Philadelphians?
We definitely would be more than ecstatic to have the opportunity to kind of curtail a curriculum for estate planning. We've had some discussions with Temple in the past when our probate officer, Lou Dorenzo, attends some of their real estate events to discuss this, and the outpouring of information that they received, it's tenfold to be like needed. We've had conversations a couple years ago with Dr. Watlington from the school district. It sounded like a great idea, but we've never really been able to kind of scale up the I guess, curriculum to really push this through. And, with your help, we would love to do something like that.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you have these community engagement specialists, and I think that could be part of their process to create a program that could be specialized going into schools and these youth organizations and teaching them about this. I wish I'd have known this information as a young person, as a young adult. I mean, that could be really helpful. It could change our city. But that's just something innovative. All right, I'll stop there. Maybe that's a follow-up. Thank you, Council President.
You're welcome. Dr. Phillips, the chair recognizes Councilmember Isaiah Thomas, then Councilmember Dr. Nina Meyer.
Good morning, Council President. Thank you for your line of questioning, as well as Majority Leader Gilmore Richardson and my Councilmember Phillips. I want to start by thanking Lou Dorenzo. I know he's not here right now, but I personally went through some personal tragedy, and Lou really was there for myself and my family, and Lou also supports us when we have other people who are going through these issues. So I wanted to start by putting that on the record. In the same spirit of Councilmember Phillips, well, before we get into contracts, first question. So your budget is about $5.9 million with another million or so that you get to deal with that's in the general fund through the city. In the recent mid-year transfer, we also gave you guys another $80,000. We asked some questions during that mid-year transfer, not quite sure what the answers are, still waiting on some of those questions to be answered around the mid-year. But in the registrar's testimony today, the register is asking for an increase in this year's budget. How much more money are you asking for on top of the about $6.8 million you have, which also includes the $800,000 you just got? And what do you plan on doing with the new revenue?
Yes, so this year we're asking for $1.2 million. We need about $500,000 for the legacy system replacement.
I'm sorry, you got to speak into the mic a little bit more.
This year we're asking for $1.2 million. We're asking for $500,000 to replace the system. We're asking for $500,000 for the archives project to restore records. We're asking for $150,000 in Class 100, given that one of our old-time employees retired and they have accumulated substantial time in their book to pay their retirement, terminal leave, and vacation. We also asked for $100,000 in Class 400 to replace computers. Our computers are crashing, so we need to replace and get up-to-date Windows. For the FY25, it's about $81,000. That's to amend the current FY25 budget to include the exempt raise increases that were given July 1st for the exempt employees. That's about it.
Thank you. So I see that my time is up. I just want to go ahead, and I didn't get the chance to ask about contracts, but Councilmember Phillips has pretty much captured my sentiment as well, too. I think there's a lot of contracts that you guys have out there.
Excuse me.
And sorry.
Member Thomas, I have a point of information by Councilmember O'Rourke.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you. How old are your computers? You said they're crashing. Do you have a general idea about actually how old they are?
So we've had a lot of computers.
Excuse me, 1 second. I'm gonna ask my team to work on this. You'll have to fix your microphones and then speak into the microphone, because we can barely hear you over here. So you gotta fix them and then speak into them. Adjust them and speak into them.
All right, sorry about that. Thank you, Council President.
That's okay.
We've kind of handled our equipment on a cycle basis, so we've technically ordered maybe 25, or more so 20 to 25 every other year. And a lot of our computers, I'd say, are roughly around the 2012 range of computers. They work, majority of them, but we've tried to utilize them until their life end, cycle them out, new ones in. The pandemic, we've purchased, I'd say about 15 to 17 laptops to kind of deal with the whole transition, some working from home, some not. So we had an influx of laptops, but we really want to overhaul all of our technology to be modern and to date.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Chair recognizes Member Thomas.
My time is up, Council President. I want to be respectful. I just want to close out by saying you're asking for $8 million this year. That's a significant amount of money. I just wanted to echo the sentiments of Councilmember Phillips as far as contracts, but also just put on the record, we did put in writing that there have been a number of complaints that came to our office around contracts for Black and brown businesses, as well as issues with Black and brown staff members. And we understand that because of pending litigation, you can't have that conversation right now publicly, so we appreciate you responding and giving us that information, but we do look forward to having a conversation off the record where you don't have to have the conversation in public prior to us passing a budget, so we can make sure that we're addressing some of the concerns that's been communicated to myself, members of council, and clearly is going out to the public as well. Thank you, Council President.
As a follow-up to the line of questioning, could we just get an update on the percentages of minority participation in terms of contracts that comes through the Office of Register of Wills?
I'll let my chief deputy answer that.
Thank you for the question, Council President. Based on policy from the Law Department and our advice from our attorney on Friday, this is actually a very important point to the plaintiff's lawyers, and our lawyers asked us not to comment publicly, but more than happy to provide any of these answers privately. It's actually part of the case at the moment.
Chair recognizes Councilmember Thomas.
So, Council President, in the same spirit, I do want to just confirm that we are a part of a lot of confidential meetings and conversations as members of City Council. So you might not be able to give the information publicly, but I think what we're asking for is an off-the-record conversation so we can look at the numbers, look at the data, see what's going on with contracts and staff. Because again, those are complaints that were sent to us. So
that's not what I was asking for.
Oh, I'm sorry, Council President.
I just thought in general, because I didn't know about the lawsuit, I just thought in general, just as a matter of practice, right, like any department that would come in front of us, there's just public information on diversity, equity, and inclusion in terms of participation. And you're saying you can't speak generally about the participation that your office provides because it's part of a litigation, so you can't speak on it publicly, but you can speak on it privately, correct?
Yes.
Okay. All right. I mean, we can have a follow-up conversation, but I just thought as just a matter of general practice, rather as your office or anybody else's office that comes, those numbers would just be generally a part of the record because it's standard practice, unless I might have missed something.
To be fair, I'm not a lawyer, so...
So they don't want you to, the lawyer said don't speak on it.
Correct. That said, the way you're stating the question maybe doesn't seem as, you know...
Yeah.
Like that. I understand how,
Like,
I understand
for
the
instance,
difference.
if it was the police department, the district attorney's office, L&I, Commerce Department, members would just generally ask, what's your goals around participation? And then the agency or the department would say, our participation numbers are 30%, this many women, this many people of color, this many people who are veterans, this many people are LGBTQ. And so I just thought that we just had that information that's just...
So I think that's a fair question,
You know
and
what I
I
mean?
think that, yes, I'll have Earl Dick could come back up to answer that question, and the way you phrased it,
Yeah,
I
it's
appreciate
just
that.
general,
I'm a little nervous myself, not being a lawyer, making sure I'm not running
Yeah, that's
afoul
cool.
of the law department.
Yeah, that's cool.
Thank you for that question. So as far as the contract, we are about $157,000, about 46 closest percent in minority, diversity,
Real simple
disabled.
question.
As far as like staffing, we are at 46% minority,
Okay.
and we have about 41 females and 40 males. So,
And how are your contracts broken down? You said 46%?
yes, so our
Okay, break
most,
that down, those numbers.
we have about 4 to 5 contracts. I gotta pull the budget. In minority and disabled, we have 1 disabled person, and we have 4 minority contracts, minority local businesses.
Okay, and who are, and just one last part, and in terms of those 4, right, one is someone that's disabled, let's check the boxes. The other one is what, women? Another one African American, another one Latino, another one LGBTQ. Can you just explain that?
We have 1 woman and we have about 3 male
Okay.
contracts.
Are these black male, white males? Let's be
Minority,
honest.
black males.
Minorities, okay.
And black
well,
women.
Obviously, they have to be minority if I'm asking that question. Okay, so you have 3 black males,
I'm sorry,
you have 3 black men.
3 black males,
Okay, that has
1
contract.
disabled woman,
1 disabled and 1 woman.
and 1 woman, black woman.
That was easy. That was like, that's all we were asking. So I'm not trying to, try to like play peekaboo. I just wanted to ask a general question, following up on a line of questioning of my majority whip, and that's good information to have. So that's good. The chair recognizes Dr. Nina Mai and Councilmember Jim Hardy next.
Thank you, Council President. I want to pivot to your role as the clerk of Orphans Court. I know there's been a lot of issues around guardianship and problems with that. So I hear that there's a PA Act 61 that is supposed to make it safeguard the alleged incapacitated persons. So I wanted to hear your comments and any data around how well this orphans court guardianship is working and how many complaints we have gotten or how they've been resolved, and does this Act 61 help you in having, making sure that the rights of those who receive guardianship are being protected?
Thank you for that question, Councilperson. The Register of Wills, as the clerk of Orphans Court, is more like a filing center. We don't really engage in any kind of guardianship issues. We have the guardianship tracking system, which we monitor to ensure that, the guardians are filing the correct forms, periodically to ensure that there's an accounting of what's going on. But as far as any, issues revolving around guardianship, we would have to forward those questions to the orphans court judges.
So, but you would have numbers to see, because you track it, how well the guardianship program is working, or who has that information?
Yes, we would have that information. We don't have it readily available to you, but I can give it to you offline.
That would be very helpful, because there has been some constituent inquiries around that to say that people are being taken advantage of, basically. And I wanted to, and maybe you aren't able to comment on Act 61 that is supposed to make that a better process. So I'll take that response from you when you can. And then finally, just to circle back on the percentages that were discussed around the MWDSBE contract. On your testimony here, it says 21% FY25 and then projected 36, but the numbers that were shared were different.
Yes, because those numbers were as November 2024, and we were talking year to date. That normally our goal is 21%, but we always exceed on minority data.
So this projected FY26 is, you're saying you reached 46,
yes,
not 36?
So the data is as of November when the budget was put together with the actual data that I had. But, as we move forward with the new year, obviously those numbers increase. So,
and my last question on that is, do you have the Asian American and Pacific Islander community represented in your office, in your minority numbers?
Yes.
How many?
I think we have 1. We have 2, a male and a female.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Council President.
Welcome. Councilmember Jim Hardy.
Thank you, Council President. Good morning, everyone. Just like everybody else, I'd like to thank you guys for all the outreach you're doing. Had time to work with April Street at numerous events so far this year. She does a good job representing, and again, Louis, forget about it. You can't say enough about him. He's like the man when it comes to getting things done over there, and just your staff overall. But like some of my colleagues, like our leader, I'm interested in the tangled titles. There are still, my numbers are saying there are still 10,000 active tangled titles in Philadelphia. These properties cause blight, property tax revenue loss, and displacement, mainly affecting Black and brown families. Compared to FY25, because of the quantity of the tangled titles, are these titles being litigated at a faster rate? And if not, what would it take for us to do that? Your budget this year, I see, only goes up a slight bit from FY25 to FY26's appropriations. I'm just trying to figure out, are you going to have enough in this budget to handle the tangled title aspect of it, and also the influx of people with the real IDs? You guys got a lot of traffic. My office is right down the hall from you guys, and I see them out there. I mean, you guys make a good job of getting them in and out, but there's a lot of people coming in there. And I just, tangled titles, it's important. We need to keep this intergenerational wealth. So I'd just like to know how much actual money is going towards the tangled titles, and is it going to expand it, or are we going to be able to litigate these and get them taken care of faster?
Thank you for the question, Council Member. We asked for additional funding. None was granted. The slight increase is due to the contract increase for the FOPs and for the exempt employees, the estimated cost. But as far as the title clearance, I'm going to let Myasia Williams, she can speak better to the influx of cases.
Excuse me, sir. My member, Rue Landau, asking, could you speak into the microphone?
I'm sorry.
So here's what y'all can do. Don't be shy. Just pull the microphone over. It can move. That. It's not attached to the desk, so you can go like this and get in front of it. Is that better, Member Landau? So go ahead. So let's do a test move. Go ahead.
Sorry about that. So as I was saying earlier, the slight increase is due to the contract increase for the FOP employees and for the exempt employees. That's why it's like a slight change on the FY26 budget. But as far as the title clearance unit, the influx cases, I'm going to let Myasia Williams, our Director of Title Clearance Unit, to answer that.
Thank you for your question, Council Member. In the past 4 months, we have successfully transferred 29 property titles. Additionally, we have screened over 100 complex multi-level cases and currently have several active cases that are expected to be ready for deed transfer in the next few months. One of our primary challenges is the lack of available funding to assist families who cannot afford the costs associated with fees such as inheritance tax, title reports, and delinquent liens. Currently, we are actively seeking funding through grants from nonprofits, financial institutions, and legislative initiatives. This support would allow us to assist constituents who do not qualify for low-income-based tangled title programs, but still lack the financial means to clear their property titles independently.
Okay.
I have a point of information, Member Harity, if that's okay. Mr. Sabatini, Sr., is your office in line or in partnership or at the table regarding tangled titles and the mayor's home initiative? Because we're about to borrow $1 billion if this body approves it. And if we're talking about people staying inside their homes, right, I would think that this would be an intricate part of the strategy of helping individuals stay in their homes, as well as helping them build generational wealth. And for the most part, when it comes to housing preservation from one generation to the next, that this would be a part of the actual strategy, I would think.
Council President, we have not had any discussions regarding the Project Home, but as you stated, keeping people in their homes, a lot of times these are the most affordable homes for people, the ones they're living in. And, overcoming this hurdle of title clearance for a person would mean a wealth of possibilities and accessing capital that they do not have access to at the moment. So that would be a welcome partnership.
Thank you. I relinquish the time back to Member Hardy, but also want to defer to Majority Leader Gilmore Richardson for a follow-up conversation. Member Hardy?
I'll just get to what I'm trying to get at. I just thought I'd see a little bit more money because I know the lawyers were part of the problem. Like you guys had testified with the, community legal, a lot of the people, because they're middle class and actually work, can't qualify to get the lawyer, but doesn't mean they can afford to go get the lawyer on their own. I'm for one, I'm a vote for an increase so that we can handle this tangled title stuff. Look, giving these people a lawyer is just leveling the playing field. The idea, I believe, is we should think about how we keep this money in these families. So, just saying, I was just a little confused. I thought I'd see a little increase going towards the lawyer's part of it.
Thank you, Councilman. For the legal side of things, we are full-scale operational. We're following through with every case as fast as we can. Once we get to the finish line, real estate transfer tax, inheritance tax, those fees that are somewhat, at times, non-negotiable with certain entities, that's where we hit the hurdle. So that's why we're continuing to, talk to legislators, government grants to try to get funding to dedicate towards those purposes or develop some sort of...
Maybe we need to put some money there so that we could do some grants for these people. I mean, that's the bottom line. Anything that we can take out of the process that they don't have to pay for, it'll make it easier for us to keep that house in that family so that it gets passed down.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
The chair recognizes Councilmember Cindy Bass, then Councilmember Jamie Gaultier, Councilmember Rue Landau, Councilmember Jones.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just had a couple of quick questions. And some of my questions were mentioned earlier in terms of the hiring and the numbers. But I really wanted to ask your Director of Human Resources, Ms. Rose Burrow, to step forward. I had a couple of questions for her. And, the first thing I wanted to say is that one thing I've noticed, because my office is up on the 5th floor, when I come downstairs to come to chambers, that 4th floor hallway is always full. And it's full in a way that it's never been before. And, through when Donna Tucci was the register, through when Gordon was the register, and now where you all, there's definitely an uptick in the work that you all are doing. And so I wanted to ask you about hiring and just really how, sort of what's the office strategy in terms of managing, the needs, because there's a lot of people out there and they start early in the morning, they're there all day long, different people coming and going, but that busyness is happening all day long. So how are you hiring to keep up with the need? And I'm assuming that part of what the ask is to make sure that you're able to hire enough people to provide the services to our citizens.
Good morning, Council.
Good morning.
With that being said, with the Real ID situation, it's a lot of chaos. So what we needed to do, we had to hire at least 15% more than we had in the register will. So at that point, we have plenty enough people who can handle the situation.
So is it mostly Real ID that's driving that?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, I thought everybody was getting married all of a sudden. I said, oh my, everybody wants to be married now. Okay, and so it's the Real ID that's driving people to the
Absolutely,
office?
because they need marriage records.
Okay, and you all are managing what you have now?
Absolutely.
Okay, but when you're thinking about sort of like the strategy of hiring to make sure that you hire people, of different ethnic backgrounds, to make sure you have African American and Latino representation, that you have representation from the LGBTQ community and so forth, just talk about what your strategy is in sort of managing all that.
Well, as far as all the different diverse accusations that you made, we have we have Latinos, we have Asian, we have different, people can speak different languages, that we do not have a barrier problem at all.
But that's clearly is a part of your strategy. And, the numbers that you've given us thus far, are promising. And I know that there's some question about, additional hires that may happen and, sort of beefing up those numbers. So, council looks forward to working with you all in the future to help you realize what it is that you need and making sure that there's representation from all parts of the city. So, thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Member Bass. Playing it safe in the 8th. At this time, I would like to call Councilman Rue Landau, then Councilman Jamie Gauthier, and then the gentleman from the 4th Councilmanic District, and then we will be, Councilmember Jones and Councilmember Brooks. I'm sorry. Then we'll go into our second round.
Thank you so much. Thank you all so much for being here. I have a question about title clearance unit and also about fee waivers. So with the title clearance unit, can you explain a little bit more of exactly what role your office plays on this, what your successes have been, what your challenges are? Do you step in the role of basically being the lawyer for the person who isn't income eligible for legal aid? Wanted to talk about that. And then, in more detail for that one, are you still asking people to raise intermediary estates? So the loved one dies and they want to raise the estate, but after that person passes, someone else passes, a couple other people pass. You're asking people to raise the estates of the other folks, the heirs, who have post-deceased, the deceased. I know this is a practice that doesn't happen in other counties, and so I'm curious if you could talk about that. And then finally, the fees are quite high at this point. If there's a modest estate, a family home up to $200,000, it's costing over $490 to raise this estate. Have you thought about establishing some version of an IFP fee waiver process like the Court of Common Pleas does? Thank you so much.
Good morning, Councilwoman. I am Frank Campisi, the Chief Solicitor here at the Register of Wills. I wanted to address the issue that you've raised regarding our position with respect to these intermediary estates, and I believe we discussed this last year and our reasons and rationale. We have recently attempted to try to circumvent as best we can, with the assistance of Orphans Court, to try to appoint a neutral early on in that process. And what that neutral administrator does is able to sort of bypass some of the requirements, but eventually they will have to satisfy those requirements. But it makes it, I assume, get on a quicker track. So that's what we're obviously trying to do. And realize, Council Member, that these issues are new to us and to all of us, because I feel that the value of these properties, obviously in all of our districts, has increased tremendously. So 20 years ago, 25 years ago, we weren't discussing this because the value of the home was not as important, and there were multi-generational folks living in there. So what we're attempting to do now, and because we're in the situation that we're in, is in some cases, it's all case-by-case basis, to see if we can assist by appointing a neutral to start the process quicker. Now, some of these estates are 25, 30 years old, even beyond that. And by law, if it's beyond 21 years, the first step is Orphans Court. So you cannot even come into our offices until you get approval by Orphans Court. As a private attorney doing this work for a number of years, unfortunately that process, and it's not their fault, I mean, they're busy like everyone else is busy, but you can file a petition. Sometimes the turnaround time is quicker than others, sometimes not so much, but you have to start the process somewhere. So it is a long, arduous costly process that we're trying to assist in our own way. Thank you.
So about the process of raising the intermediary estates, is this across the board that you're doing it for everyone? What are the successes and what are the challenges that you're seeing? And also, have you considered an IFP fee waiver process?
It really, Council Member, thank you, but it really depends on the estate. Some of them are easier to handle than others. Every one of these estates has a mind of its own and has a character of its own that we need to address case by case. So that's how we're handling that. As far as fees are concerned, we're working with various organizations to either pause those fees or maybe hold on to those fees until the property is sold. And if the property has significant value, obviously, when the property is sold, the fees can be recouped. But that's an ongoing process that we're still trying to work with.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Chair recognizes Councilman Jamie Gautier.
Thank you, Council President. I had the same questions as Councilmember Landau.
Chair recognizes Councilman Jones.
Thank you, Mr. President. You do notice the bling on Jamie today?
Congratulations, Member Gautier and Member Rulandau for completing the Broad Street run. Let's give them a round of applause. And Member Jones, she is blinked out today.
Thank you so much, Councilmember Jones and Council President. And thank you for having your team out there with water for us and to cheer us on. We really appreciated it. I had the same questions as Councilmember Landau, so I won't go through asking them again. But I think you're seeing this morning how important the tangled title issue is for City Council, and it has been for several years now. I think that we understand, as you do, that this is one of the biggest barriers for low-income homeowners accessing wealth and to be able to take advantage of the great home repair and other programs that the city of Philadelphia has available to them. Moreover, this issue impacts my district in a huge way. I think that the 3rd district, if I'm remembering correctly from the Pew report, has the most tangled titles. And I also want to acknowledge our majority leader's great work and focus on this issue. And so we all are in communication with not only you all, but the legal service organizations about the barriers to this work. And it's been highlighted that this intermediary estate issue, the fee waiver issue, and the email communication issue are some of the biggest barriers for us being able to help people. And so I think what we're trying to get on record today is that there is a real and concrete commitment from the Register of Wills office to knock down these barriers, right? And I think that's something that we would want to see over the next budget year from you. And so I'd love for you to just comment on your commitment to that and how maybe we can get to a different place over the next budget year. And then, since some of these are state issues, I wanted to hear about whether there's been any advocacy at the state level or whether you're planning on any advocacy over the state level to knock down some of these barriers as well.
Thank you, Council Member. If I can address the issue of what it is our offices are attempting to do to assist the tangled title crisis. So we created this title clearance unit, and as you've heard testimony today, the number of tangled titles I don't feel gives justice to the reality of the situation. So if we assist one tangled title, we untangle a title, you're not just affecting one person. You're affecting 10s, 20s, 30s, maybe more, multi-generational people who, with now that title being cleared, have the assets to continue to reinvest in and protect the family wealth. So when you hear numbers, we cleared so many tangled titles in a particular month, multiply that number by 30, 40, 50 people. That's the constituents that we're assisting every day, and that's something that we're continuing and are committed to continue to do. Regarding the state issue, an interesting question arose recently about that very issue, because the Register of Wills Office is responsible for collecting inheritance taxes for the Commonwealth. So an issue was raised and brought to the attention of the Commonwealth. Well, what about these intermediary estates? Do they have to pay inheritance taxes? Because that's important, right? If you have a situation where the grandmother passes her assets to 3 children, and who then passes their assets to 6 grandchildren, we know that when grandmom dies, we have to pay inheritance taxes at the child level of 4.5%. But then we have been told, because we asked that question specifically to the Commonwealth, does that next level have to be paid? So does the grandchild have to pay for their parent? And the answer was a resounding yes. That is something that we are responsible for collecting. So because that is an issue at the state level, obviously, we can only do so much in what we're trying to protect, which is to assist.
Just in clarification, I hope I didn't make it sound as if I don't appreciate your work. I do. I want to be very clear about that. Thank you for the work that you've done on every single title that you've cleared. I think what I'm asking is how we do more. As the council president just highlighted, we are, embarking on an ambitious housing plan, but the most affordable home is the home someone lives in. And so I don't misunderstand that the issue is a state issue. I'm more so asking about if there is advocacy that has been done or that will be done to change that dynamic, and what we can do in the office to also knock down some of these barriers as we attempt to grow the work.
Thank you, council member. And again, we are assisting all of our constituents with the Tangle Clearance Unit and continue to address these intermediary issues on a case-by-case basis.
I look forward to talking more. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Councilman.
Thank you. The chair recognizes Councilmember Brooks and Councilmember Jones.
Thank you, Council President. So my questions were on the same lines. So I just have a question also about the Tangle Tees. I remember last year, you guys said it was a 2-year backlog, and I heard you say 29 cases were cleared. Where are we with the 2-year backlog, though?
I'll refer this to our unit.
Thank you for your question. The 2-year backlog, I believe, refers to the PDI program that the previous administration had in place.
Okay.
That program is no longer active. We replaced it with the Title Clearance Unit because that program ultimately deferred probate fees and placed a lien on people's properties, which weren't beneficial to the families. The PDI program also referred cases to the low-income-based organization.
But so what happened to the folks that were on that backlog? Did they have to reapply? Were they transitioned into another program? And have we done anything to clear that? Whether it's a different type of program, what are we currently doing? And what happened to those folks that were waiting in the midst?
I do not have that information at this time, but I can provide that to you in writing.
Okay, and my next question, because I was thinking if we shouldn't have people repeating systems and cycles over and over again. And if whatever we're doing now, whatever the current program is, we should be focused on making sure people are made whole, whatever that means, family by family. And if we're gonna make that investment, it should be into programs so low-income folks are able to do that. So that was my question. But just so I can get all my questions on a record, I was wondering, what law firms do you use to participate in the resolutions of this event, whether with your office or through Orphans Court? And I wonder what judges oversee this? And do the law firms get a percentage of the sales of Tangle Title properties through Orphans Court?
We have an attorney on staff that is assisting with the constituents in our program. But as far as your other question.
So you handle all of these things in-house? You don't contract out to any other law firms outside of the Register of Wills office?
Not at this time.
Okay. Thank you. That's it.
Thank you, Member Brooks. The chair recognizes Councilmember Curtis Jones Jr.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you for what you do around the corner from us. I, too, have noticed the increase in crowds. And I wondered, is that in part due to the deportation policy of the Trump administration and how that has impacted your office? That's number one. Number two, I need to know about what are you doing about wills and educating people not just about tangled titles, but about the importance of properly filing a will. I will leave my personal story of me and my brother going through that kind of exercise and how traumatic it can be at the worst time of a person's relationship with a deceased. And then finally, third thing, for the 250th anniversary, you guys have an archive that precedes this country. The first charter was filed here in this county. And I wanted to know, does that 250 celebration in part illustrate some of the historic aspects of your office? Those are the three questions I have.
I'll start off for you, Councilman. Thank you very much for the question. Quickly on what you pointed out about potential reasons for the marriage license and marriage records. Unofficially, I mean, officially people don't have to tell us why, you know what I mean? Only if they ask for expedited because of a passport, that's certainly a reason, but there are other reasons, are their own personal reasons. We did informally find out a lot of things last year in terms of marriage license, actually people applying for the license, not the record, were some fears regarding the not so much the deportation at that point, just the election. And then there were some of that, but that'd be unofficial. That's just kind of a casual observation that we made. So I wouldn't be able to answer that specifically. I'll skip the wills and we'll probably bring up Roger. So to speak about that, the A250, we would love to be involved in those things. We are obviously seeking more additional funding for the digitization and preservation of the records. We do have some that are already on display. You could come to our office and we could show you what we have, and we feel we could be a big part of that celebration next year with the city. So we would love to do it.
I gotta believe that you should be working with Michael Loomis over there to talk about this being a stop, that visitors that are coming to Philadelphia kind of take a look at the historic nature of your office and before we were a nation, the role we played. So.
He was in our office. We did have a great conversation with him. I think you made a great point. I'll bring up Mr. Roger Poe to talk about the wills. That's more about our public engagement, how we're getting that word out, and he can answer your question regarding that.
Mr. Poe.
Good morning, Council President and other council members, Mr. Councilman Jones. I'm Roger Poe, Director of Communications. I'm not going to assume, but I'm alluding that in the previous administration, there was a huge focus on wills and doing them. We've continued to do that. Part of the people that we've hired contractually are doing outreach, as well as myself, continue in that conversation. I personally have been doing wills workshops every week for different organizations, but that's still an ongoing part of our process.
I'm very glad to hear that. We have little understanding as to how the tangled title got tangled. And part of it is because we did not give specific instructions to you and the government and our heirs as to how we wanted property distributed and what our wishes were. And it's the kind of thing that at the point you need it, you wish you did it years ago. So I think it's an important part, particularly in black and brown neighborhoods where, you know, that kind of emphasis can go generations without being addressed. And, you know, it's in the brown paper box in the back of the closet when it should be registered with yourself. So is there a marketing strategy, of which I know you're very good at, to kind of get that message out there?
Again, we have a curriculum. All of our folks that are in outreach go out and do that. And I'm sure you're aware of the axiom, an ounce of prevention is worth more than a pound of the cure. So yes, by getting that information, you won't have tangled titles. You won't have these issues because you will have dedicated and specified who the assets go to.
Well, last thing, how much does a will on average cost?
We work with several agencies, as you have been referenced here, that doesn't cost anything if they take you in as a client.
We got to get that out there. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you very much. Just had a question before we go into our second round. You have an initiative, very good initiative, called Legacy and Wealth, How Inheritance Shaped America, external project brief for partners and funders. So one, I want you to give us an update on that particular initiative as we celebrate on the 250th anniversary in 2026. And then also as a part of your strategy regarding the City Hall exhibit, the statewide tour, lecture and panel series, community storytelling initiatives, then it's a public workshops and legal literacy campaign. Now, one, I think that this is a very, very important initiative, so I want to get an idea of the coalition building that you're doing to make sure that this is successful, the partnerships that you're engaging in to make sure this is successful, and then also it strikes out to me when you talk about legacy and wealth and how inheritance shaped America. I just want to recommend that as you partner with different organizations, you talk about 40 acres in a mule that's owed to African Americans, black people in here in America as it relates to how we help build this country. And also the issue regarding redlining, particularly around the issue of housing and the role it has played in terms of the inequality of neighborhoods and opportunities for individuals to build generational wealth based upon banks doing redlining here in the city of Philadelphia, and in terms of also the housing market. And then, but also, last but not least, in terms of partnerships, I recommend, I'm appointed to my civil rights housing leader and city council. On a federal level, it's called the Fair Housing, what's the name of the actual agency that deals with the fair housing rights?
HUD, really, on the federal.
Not HUD, it's, I'll come back, but I know exactly, it's a different department, not particularly HUD, because HUD just deals with housing. But there is a federal agency that specifically deals with the Fair Housing Rights Act that makes sure that we're being inclusive and equitable in terms of housing. But I'll make sure I'll get you the information. But want to be partners. I think you taking on the inheritance piece in terms of how wealth was built in America is a very, very important issue. And it's an issue that's probably not normally talked about, but you can't talk about it if you don't talk about the role that African Americans have played when we talk about wealth and how pretty much, I'm not shy to say, when we talk about 40 acres and a mule, is because prior to the emancipation of freedom, I mean, we probably much provided free labor. I think we are the labor movement, to be quite frank, when it comes to building this country. And so I'm glad that you are doing this. We want to be supportive of you as you do this. If you talk about a City Hall exhibit, you talk about a statewide tour, you talk about a workshop, my team will step up with the plate, and I'm sure members of council will support you in those efforts, because most people will dare not talk about inheritance of wealth in this country. And if you're talking about like real wealth and how that wealth actually got started for a lot of different people that benefited in this country, I would be less than a man to really talk about, or a leader, what this conversation really, really means. So as the leader, Register of Wills, John Sabatino, seeing you signed off on it with your team, we're here to work with you and your team to make sure that this is a story told, because in 2026, there's a lot of advocacy around, you know, we talk about Betsy Ross' house, we got to talk about the Paul Robeson house, right? We had a hearing, which I think was great, at the Civil Rights Museum, or the American Revolution Museum, which is great, right? But also in Belmont Mansion in Councilman Curtis Jones' district, right? We can also have a roundtable discussion around the Underground Railroad, right? So we just want to make sure as we celebrate the 2026 anniversary of America, that the role that black people and other indigenous people and other people of color has played in terms of putting this country on the map. And so far, to be quite frank with you, out of a lot of the agencies that have come in front of us seeking funding, I think this is probably one that pretty much, that we be direct and have a conversation about it, talks about an issue of social justice, and it's a part of your proposal. No one's given us a proposal thus far yet, at least that I've saw, that says funding strategy and call to action, civil education and voter engagement, legal aid and estate planning and education, historic preservation and archival work, racial and economic justice, arts, humanities, and cultural outreach. And so just give us an idea where y'all at on this particular initiative moving forward.
Sorry, Council President, I actually summoned someone from downstairs to come up to address this. This is pretty much the author of these plans, so I'm going to bring him up right now.
I think the gentleman's right behind you.
This is Joe Driscoll. He's primary person. Our
He's on the
liaison.
email, Joe Driscoll.
There you go. Joe, come on.
Come on up, Joe.
Good morning, Council President and council members. It's great to see you.
How you doing? How are you?
Good, sir. How are you?
Good. Give us an idea. I was just talking about this initiatives about the inheritance of wealth in America, and I don't know if you were up here. I just said, quite frank, hopefully that my recommendation is that when you're doing exhibits in City Hall, you're talking about doing a statewide tour, you're talking about doing workshops and panels, right? Particularly that as a part of that conversation, you talk about 40 acres and a mule with African Americans in terms of the role that we have played in America for 2026. Also the role regarding redlining that has taken place in the city of Philadelphia, where banks didn't allow individuals to provide home mortgages in certain neighborhoods that resulted in what we see today in the city of Philadelphia and all throughout America. So those are two of the key areas that I believe played a major role in terms of how wealth has been generated in America. And then last but not least, at least from my perspective, and I'm quite sure other members are here, want to be supportive of this initiative in terms of organizations that we partner with, that we recommend that you work with, coalition building around this issue. This is a very, very serious issue that y'all are embarking upon, in my humble opinion.
Absolutely, Council President. Legacy and wealth, how it inherited and shaped America, is about how it inherited and shaped America, but it's equally as about who gets left out of that promise. And we're not only telling the stories, but we're going to be attacking that through workshops like Roger was just talking about, and through all of the outreach initiatives that we do through next year. We're going to include that in here. And so absolutely, who gets left out of this promise of generational wealth is going to be the most heavy focus on this program. So there'll be the storytelling, there'll be the power plays, and who built lots of wealth, but we want everyone to build wealth. And so this is really about education. This is really about making sure that stories are told, and not just the good ones, the folks that have been left out. And so absolutely, Council President, any suggestions you or your staff have on this program, we will implement.
All right, thank you very much. And last but not least, good presentation regarding civic engagement. And I see y'all do a lot of work with the Scoop. Have we considered papers such as the Tribune, papers such as the Philadelphia Sun, local newspapers besides the Scoop? It seems like this is heavily supported on the Scoop, but not papers such as the Tribune, Philadelphia Sunday Sun,
Good question.
WURD.
Good question, Council President. And you and I have background and experience with my media background, so all those are considerations. I don't know how much we asked for, but we might want to just put a few more dollars in our budget for that.
I'm just saying, I don't stare. I just say these are things to take in consideration, make sure it's equitable across the board, and I only see one particular paper. And so I just wanted to put that out there just for the record, just making sure you're diverse and inclusive, including WHYY for the record as well. And those types of overall far-reaching types of media genres. And so I just wanted to put that on the record. But I do know for a fact, if we're talking about building generational wealth and getting to communities that haven't had an opportunity to build generational wealth as much as others, then you have that type of audience that do read the Tribune, that do read the Philadelphia Sun, just so something to think about as you think comprehensively regarding your media strategy. As well as there's a new radio station called Black Information Network as well, that I think it's like a counter, it's like a cousin to WURD. And also this helps individuals to learn about Tangled Title. Again, making sure we're just being intentional about reaching the most impoverished individuals in the city of Philadelphia. But again, just want to say great job on the legacy and wealth, how inheritance shaped America. And with that being said, the chair recognizes Majority Leader Gilmore Richardson, Councilman Dr. Anthony Phillips, and then we'll wrap up with Councilman Rue Landau.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Council President. Thank you especially for that line of questioning, and in particular, the question regarding the home initiative and how the Register of Wills office is working with the administration. I know a lot of what we have received is relative to home preservation and helping folks stay in their home, and I'm glad to hear that you all stated the most affordable home one has is one that's already in the family. So my request is that you all, as an independent row office, schedule a time to meet with the administration and let us know the summary of the conversation and what further work comes from that meeting, so that we have that information when and as we deliberate this housing initiative. We still have an additional hearing on the housing initiative coming up, and so it would be really helpful for us to have that information so that we better understand how you all are coordinating with the administration around home ownership and preservation in particular, because that's a part of the 30,000 units. So I wanted to put that on the record. And you all mentioned several times that because of state law, that you're unable to waive certain fees and do certain things. I wanted to know if you all could give us a list, if you had a wish list of things that we could give to our partners in the State House and in particular in the Philly delegation regarding our specific needs in Philadelphia around creating some type of waiver program and or deferring some of the fees. What would that list be? Can you all provide us with a list that we could give to our state partners?
Definitely. I mean, out of the fees that are mandated by statute, you know, those are the things that we have struggles with. But, you know, maybe increasing the allowance of eligibility through the Tangle Title Fund, raising that bar. A lot of the grants that we submit for, income requirements are attached to, so then, you know, we're in the same boat than we were before. Establishing a maybe grant or amnesty program for some of the fees that are related to utilities, you know, inheritance tax, those conversations with the state. They've had amnesty programs in the past, which were successful.
Right.
We haven't had one, I think, maybe in 15 years.
At least.
You know, so something like that could also help us get over hurdles. And, you know, a legislative grant or, you know, even a city grant to kind of put us in the parameters of people who are just above the poverty level, but also still, you know, struggling in these times. That group as well is something that we struggle with to try to manage and get them over the finish line.
Okay, I would request that you all give us a list that we could share with the state partners to our council president for dissemination to all members of this committee, so that we can include that as a part of their process as well. I don't think we should be in a circumstance where we say every year, well, the state, and right now we have Speaker Joanna McClinton, who is dynamic, our Philadelphia delegation chair, Cephas, we have chair of appropriations in the House, my fraternity brother, Representative Jordan Harris, who's the best, and then also State Senator Hughes. And so I think we have enough up in Harrisburg to sort of help us with whether we could do an amnesty program or looking at changing the percentage around AMI for eligibility purposes. I think there's a few things there that low-hanging fruit that we need to attach to and try to bring those down to help open up more availability for our constituents as we're looking at this housing initiative. And I heard the bell and I'm going to honor the clock, but I did see on page 6 in section 38 of your detail around the state administration that there was an increase over the FY25 estimated obligations to FY26 proposed budget. There's an increase for grants funding. Can you talk about what that grant is for? I think it's an extra $650,000 for state administration in particular.
Pass that to our finance director.
Thank you for the question. So we continue to apply for grants, and was the grant amount that we put through the state legislator. So there was increased
Wait, I'm sorry, can you repeat that? I don't know why I'm having a hard time hearing you.
Yeah, so we continue to apply for grants, whether they're federal or state. So we had conversation with some legislators about potential grants for archives. Okay. So they, it was not a said and done deal. We put the application, but we haven't heard anything, so it's like still in the works. And it was an increase, based on conversation with the administration, given the grant amount to include it in the budget detail.
I see. So it's the circumstance of it has a zero net impact on your budget.
Yes.
But you're waiting to hear back on whether or not you'll have or receive the grant, but you have it there as a placeholder.
Yes.
Just in case.
Yes.
Received. Okay. All right. Thank you very much, Council President.
Thank you, Majority Leader Gilmore Richardson.
I apologize for this, Council President. May I just get this one additional question in?
Absolutely.
I apologize for this. I made a notation also on page 13, section 38 of your detail relative to interpretation. There's a contract for interpretations, Globo Language Solutions, LLC. It says $5,000. And I see there was another contract for FY25 for PowerLink. That was only for $1,000 for FY25, but that goes out afterwards. Can you talk to us about how you all are providing interpretation services for constituents for your print materials, as well as in the office, as, individuals who come in who may not speak English as a first language?
Yes, so the two contracts, the Global and the PowerLink, they go through the MDO's office, so we reach out to the MDO to encumber the funding. We also reserve interpreters for every marriage license appointment or the other services that we have in office. So first they will book the appointment and then they'll shoot the details and then we'll reserve the interpreter for the specific date and time frame. There was an increase on Global currently because we got some documents, not legal documents, but forms translated in Spanish. So we are foreseeing invoices coming for those translations. PowerLink is a translation company. We normally don't use them for interpretation. We use Global mostly, but in case of like who better has the better rates, we kind of reserve the funding ahead when the new fiscal year kicks in. So
I pointed it out because it was only $5,000, and I know that as an example for our hearings, if we receive notification for a hearing as an example that an individual needs interpretation services, we have to provide that.
Yes.
And so I just wanted to make sure that there was an opportunity for our constituents to receive translation services, but also that the materials are translated as well, and that there's is there anybody in your office, like just on your staff, that can provide interpretation?
Yes, so we have bilingual staff
Okay.
in the office. We have Spanish, we have Portuguese, we have Albanian, Italian, so we have all these languages, just we don't have every other language, and we constantly book interpreters through Global for every appointment. We don't turn down anyone. There are circumstances where we book an interpreter and they might not show up, or they had double booked with a different agency, so then when those circumstances occur, then staff will step in if they know the language. But
I see.
for depending on the service, we require in-person interpreter, but we also have the option of the phone line interpretations to provide to clients. And also we have like boards throughout the office with different languages to pinpoint in the right target language. So we constantly book interpreters though for every appointment.
Right, I was just asking because I just know how much their hourly rate is, and I saw it was only $5,000. That's why I was asking, for the whole year.
Yeah, I understand that we keep increasing in increments of thousands. We don't have a lot of funding in class 200 to, dedicate to like additional resources, but as we go through the quarters, if we have additional funding, we increase, but we don't let anyone, like, with our interpretation services, either staff will step in or we constantly book interpreters.
Okay, meaning that you, as an example for FY25, you only utilize $5,000, right?
To start.
Okay, all right, I was just making sure because I'm like, I know what the hourly rate, okay. All right, thank you. Thank you very much, Council President.
Thank you very much. Chair recognizes Councilman Ru Landau, then we'll be wrapped up by Councilmember Dr. Phillips.
Thank you. I neglected to give you thanks earlier, so I wanted to start with that. I appreciate so much that your brochure on marriage rights is completely gender neutral. And as somebody who got your first same-sex marriage ever in not only city of Philadelphia, but the state of Pennsylvania, I remember how you had a very quick learning curve in your office to not only handle same-sex marriages, but to also then really just try to use gender-neutral language for any couple that was coming in to get married. So it was really great to see your brochure recently just say, you want to get married? Come on in. You're all welcome. Appreciate that. But my second thing, I think Majority Leader Gilmer Richardson really kind of handled it. Like, I would very much love to see as much as possible, not just relying on grants, but a fee waiver system for lower income people who can't afford the fees in your office. It's something I'd be happy to even help you set up. It's essential, and we need folks with these houses to keep every dollar they possibly can. So thank you.
Thank you. Two brief follow-up questions, Councilmember Dr. Phillips, and then Councilman Ketty Lozada. Briefly, please.
Thank you. I just had a quick question. What culturally-specific outreach strategies has the department found most successful educating hearers on the complexities of the probate and the urgency of getting it done? And so how it's going to be expanded FY26? So I just had that question.
I'm sorry, Councilman, could you just repeat that?
I'll ask it. So what outreach strategies has the department found most successful in educating individuals, right, hearers, on probate complexities and its urgency?
Primarily just meeting them out where they are, various events, various organizations, churches, senior centers, the pop-ups we're doing in your office, out in the district. We're meeting in all the districts. We're educating all constituent services people with city council, with state legislators, federal legislators as well. And it's just repetitively making sure that we get the word out.
Is a point of information then, Mr. Poe, is this your strategy? This your comms plan?
That's our strategy. We work as a team here, Council President.
Don't be shy. Is this your strategy that you put together the comms team or the outreach?
Yes, sir. Sure. Yes, sir.
I mean, that's how I know you do comms, right?
You and I have
from
worked
Radio
together
1,
for
right?
several
Don't say what you and I do. You come from Radio 1, right? You do comms.
Yes, sir.
This is just a follow what Dr. Phillips is saying in terms of the outreach and really meeting people where they're at. And then when I saw this with a picture of Phillips and the Register of Wills, Sabatina, I said, okay, this is, I think, aren't you doing with state legislators as well? I think I saw what Senator Williams doing with.
Yes, we are. Yes, we are. But again, to the councilman's credit, that idea was initiated by him in his office, so he needs to get the credit.
But you decide, but y'all are engaging together.
It was the perfect marriage,
so
Councilman.
That's why I asked the question, because I said we need to have further, ideas and innovation to make things like this happen. Because honestly, I get confused about the probate process, you know, so if I'm confused, I can only imagine.
Could you speak into the microphone,
Oh,
please?
I only said that because if I get confused about the probate process and I know something about it, then I can only imagine how do you break it down to layman's terms for regular residents and, you know, all your information and data. So it's just something I just want you, you know, think about more strategically, like how do you break it down simply for people to understand? So.
Duly noted, sir. We'll take your recommendations in hand.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank you. And last but definitely not least, Councilman Ketty Lozada.
Thank you, Council President. I just want clarification on my colleague's question. She mentioned if $5,000 was enough for you all for translation services. I know that my office has translated multiple documents for your office. When we met, you all mentioned that there was challenges and that, you know, you're trying to work on translation services. So I'm a bit confused now. Is that enough? Do you, with the increase in folks that are coming to your office for services as a result of your outreach, is that enough for you all to keep up with the work? And then you mentioned staff that is bilingual, but you experience challenges in translating this stuff. So talk to me a little bit about, help me understand the discrepancies in your testimony and in your materials and in your one-on-one meetings.
So as far as the translation, we can only translate brochures, informational brochures. In terms of like being enough, no, it's not enough because, you know, we deal with limited sources in Class 200 where the professional services for translations comes in. But as we move towards the fiscal year, if we have funding surplus, we'll dedicate it to additional to translating brochures or increasing the interpretations, but also staff does a magnificent job in like helping constituents, but we also have the language line available to us. The 5,000 is to start the fiscal year because we got to go through the MDOs to reserve the funding to pay for Global because their contract falls under them. But obviously, as I mentioned, you know, we can dedicate additional resources if we had more, but if we have a surplus, we dedicate those resources to the interpretation services. And obviously, with the new service, it's going to be in an influx. And obviously, we're going to need more resources to dedicate to interpretation, depending on the public request, you know.
Who do you have in your office that translates for you all now?
I'm sorry?
Who do you have in your office that translates for you now?
So we have Spanish-speaking employees that work in marriage license or probate. We have Portuguese speaking employees. We have people from Asia, they speak Vietnamese, Indian. So our staff goes out depending like on the request, like everybody volunteers to help out in terms of like public engagement. So they bring that language with them in that community. Now, if we target a specific community, then we'll book an interpreter to go out for that event as well. We'll reach out to Global and give the instructions where to report and what's the event all about. But staff normally, if they go out, if there's a bilingual employee that goes out with the public engagement units, obviously they'll help translate, let's say in Spanish, if there needs to be, or Albanian or Italian, if there are out with the public engagement unit. But normally, if they don't, then we'll reserve an interpreter for their event.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you very much. Any other questions from members? With that being said, the only follow-up I would like to do with you and your team, Mrs. Sabatino and Joel Williams, is just making a connection with Michael Numis regarding 2026 and just making sure that there's a partnership regarding the Legacy and Wealth, How Inheritance Shaped America initiative with the Register of Wills. And so whatever we can do to forge that partnership with Michael Numis and making sure that as he shaped what 2026 looks like, that this initiative is a part of the conversation and most importantly, the rollout plan. And so want to be helpful from that aspect.
Yeah, the Council President, sorry to interrupt you, but we've met with Michael Numis and we've had a great meeting with him and having the idea of Visit Philadelphia, our documents, our presentation of documents, and developing those stories that you discussed earlier. So, we'll definitely circle back with more information on that, but he seemed
Did y'all get
enthused.
funding for the work that y'all are going to be doing to help roll out what y'all are doing?
We submitted it's in our proposal, and also I think he was going to include it in his proposal to the administration.
Good, okay. All right, because meetings are great, funding is even better. So with that being said, thank you very much for your time. Sabatina Senior, continue to keep up the good work with you and your team. Thank you very much. And also, shout out to Lou Dorenza. I know he's retiring, and so I know y'all are sending him away for all the great work that he's done working under the Office of Register of Wills. So with that being said, we will be adjourned until the afternoon session at 1:30.